some of your peers, but now we have an opportunity for you guys to hear from someone and folks who are doing their thing in media, television, what have you, and then we also have a dynamic moderator for you all. And so this piece and portion is going to be called our shop conversation. How many of y'all been to a barbershop? At least once. Come on, Miles. Come on, Miles. Thank you. And so you understand how precious a barbershop can be, the conversation that you can have in a barbershop, the things that you can learn from the elders in the barbershop, and the game that you can pick up. So much of what I've learned about myself, grooming, etiquette, how to treat people came from the conversations that I heard in the barbershop. And so I'm so excited to be introducing our final moderator for the evening, Mr. Ryan Hardgraves. Woo!
All right. It's been a long day, guys, but I'm so glad to still see your faces here. I'm excited to lead this panel we're going to have about barbershop talk. As Jamil said, I'm a barber. That's what I do. That's what I've done for the last almost 20 years of my life. I was about your age when I started cutting hair. And I was 15 years old the first time I picked up a pair of clippers, and it changed my life. For the first time, I realized that I had control of how I saw myself, but not only about how I saw myself, but how the world saw me, right? And so what I want to share today is how a pair of clippers and the experience in the barbershop changed my life, and now it's affecting the lives of others. We'll talk about what I'm calling leading from the barbershop. We want to make sure that we help you all understand how you can effectively lead from the place you're in, whether it's from a barbershop, a classroom, a work-study job if you're in college or wherever you are. One of the things that we have to understand is that leadership is a very simple thing, although we've made it very complicated. Leadership, according to John Maxwell, is influence. Nothing more, nothing less. Now, the interesting thing about this word called influence is that in this world, influence has become something that is synonymous with social media. An influencer. How can I become an influencer? What can I do to get the followers and the likes? And unfortunately, what we've done now is we've traded influence for attention. If influence truly is leadership or any word that ends in the word ship should move you towards something, right? Ships don't just sit in docks. They eventually get on the water and move you forward, correct? Mm-hmm. Yeah? And so if leadership is influence, but influence isn't moving anybody, is it truly influence? No, it's attention. And unfortunately, what we've done now in our community, and especially our community and in our society, is that we've leveraged influence for attention, and we've monetized people watching us, but we haven't moved them in a positive direction. So my real question is, what good is a platform such as a TikTok or Instagram or YouTube or any other media platforms that will come out if we aren't using them to help grow, mold, and shape people, not only their physical feature like I do in the barbershop, but their mind. The mind is the thing that made me fall in love with the barbershop. I realized I had an opportunity that most people don't have. They get the opportunity to sit in my chair for 30, 45, sometimes an hour, depending on what the service is, and I get to influence their mind, not only their haircut. Are you truly using whatever space it is you have effectively and responsibly to leverage your influence or to grow your leadership? Now, my question is the people that you follow on social media, would you follow them in real life? Would you actually follow them? If they're the influencer that you like, if the person on TikTok is your favorite TikToker, or the person on YouTube, you watch them every morning, would you actually follow them in real life? Or are you just getting some kicks and giggles every day so you can pass the time? I would have you begin to think about this idea. Leadership is based on these 5 levels. We call them the 5 levels of leadership. You have position, you have permission, okay? You have production, you have people development, and you have the pinnacle. Now, we'll talk about this a little bit more in detail in a second. I want to put it in your ear. There are 5 levels to leadership. That means there's 5 levels to influence. And if you only get an influence on one level from these people on your platform, are you really getting all that they told you they will provide? Or are you getting all that you told people you will provide? Maybe you have 10K followers. Maybe you have 100K subscribers. Maybe you have 5 people who listen to you in your group at school. Are you actively leading them in a way that allows them to develop in these 5 levels? Now, there's an old adage that says, anyone who's leading, if there's no one behind them, they're simply going for a walk. Are the people connected to you following you attentively? Are they following you regularly? And are they following you to lead them into a place, to develop them into a place that allows them to also cause other people to walk behind them as they walk? Now, this is an interesting thing because the thing that's really going to move it is another word that ends in ship. It's relationships. Now, the thing that I love most about working from the chair is that every week, sometimes 2 weeks, I get to develop relationships with people. And as I said previously, ships move things forward, correct? Ships are one of the few vessels that we have in this world that allow us to move things from one coast to the other, from one country to the next, oftentimes without any intrepidation. They get across the water, things get where they need to go, and they flow smoothly. The relationship is no different. The more I relate to you and understand who you are, the better I'm able to help you get to where you're going. Now, that's my relationship with you. The bigger question is how is your relationship with yourself? Have you developed a relationship with yourself? I can't move you if I can't move myself. The question was asked, hey, I have a job now. I have a position in my organization. I'm a leader now. And the guy who the question was being asked of, he said, what do I do next? He said, you lead yourself. Because if you can't lead yourself, you can't lead anyone else. How am I going to garner your respect, your attention, your buy-in to what it is I say the goal is? I can point to the board all day long, but if I have yet to figure out how to make it happen for myself, am I really someone you want to follow? You have to ask yourself these questions every single day. You have to ask yourself, am I being true to who I truly am? Now, social media would have you believe that you have to make yourself be something that you're not. That you have to follow the newest trend, use the trendy music, that you have to dress like this or talk like that. Your hair should look this way or that way. And large in part is good because we want to belong to communities. That's why we're here with the NAACP, because we want to be a part of communities that support the ship or the movement of the things that we like the most. But Shakespeare said it best. He said, "'Tis above all, to thy own self be true." What does this mean? William Shakespeare, some funny looking guy with a bad haircut, he understood that if you're not true to who you truly are, if you don't know who you are, when all the lights go off, when the phone dies, when the iPad has no more energy, when you can't make an upload, when the system crashes, if you don't know who you are you truly an effective leader? Or are you a carbon copy of somebody else? Now, my grandmother, she didn't have much education past going to beauty school. She too was a cosmetologist, a professional hairdresser. Beyond that, all she had was a Bible and some faith. And she said, son, there's enough people out here being themselves. You don't need to copy them too. You be yourself. Now, unfortunately, what happens is that we take these models of identities and we put them on ourselves, and then we look in the mirror and what do we see? We see an image of someone else. The biggest thing that we can do is make sure that when we look in the mirror, we see ourselves for who we truly are. That's where a thing like a DISC assessment comes into play. Now, aside from the barbershop, I'm also a life coach and a Christian counselor. And the DISC assessment is a tool that I use to make sure that people understand where they are. It's much like a map. When we do an assessment, we can look at the paperwork and we can say, oh, this is where I am right now in life. It's non-objective. There's no opinions in it. It's not about feelings. It's a hardcore fact about this is how you're portraying yourself to the world. So I don't have to look to social media. I don't have to look on TikTok. I don't have to look on Instagram. I don't have to look on any of these other sites. And I'm not saying that they're wrong. I'm not saying that they're not fun. Because my wife will tell you, I love checking my feed. I check my feed every day, sometimes 2 or 3 times a day. But if I don't know where I am, it doesn't matter where they are, because I don't know how to get there. And a DISC assessment is a strong tool that we talk about in Good Life Coaching. That's my coaching business, by the way. That I give you this assessment and we look at where you are right now. What do you have going on? We begin to have conversations that help us identify how can we figure out where we stand so we can figure out where it is that we're going. Because if you're not going anywhere, the laws of the world say that anything left to itself will self-destruct. That chaos is evident. It's coming and you can't stop it unless you start moving. So we start to figure out what are you, a D, a I, an S, or a C. You start to figure out, are you outgoing, are you reserved, are you task-oriented, are you people-oriented. How do these things mix together? And what we do is we take those things, especially for leaders like yourselves, and we blend them with these 5 levels of leadership. Now, position. Just because I'm on the stage alone, it gives me some position because you believe I know what I'm talking about, because they put me on stage. But over the course of time, we develop relationships that gives me permission, because now you trust me a little bit more. Now, what really happens, this is where the magic starts. When I start producing results, they say, oh, Ryan really knows what he's talking about. Then we get to what I love. This is my favorite part. It's people development. Because once we begin to develop people, there's this term that I learned in church called a disciple cycle, which means I teach people what I've learned so they can do the thing that I do. And hopefully, if I do it well enough, they'll do the job better than me. Some people call this working yourself out of a job. And then eventually you get to the pinnacle, the 5th and final stage, that says, when they hear my name, I become synonymous with greatness in whatever field it is. If it's barbering, if I become a social media influencer, if I'm a chef like my wife, or if you're a speaker like some people, like the people we've heard today, when they hear your name, they begin to say, I want to be like that. There was a commercial that once said, I want to be like Mike. Now, the people we're going to talk to today, they're these type of people. And if you want to connect with them, I want you to tap in and listen to this conversation so that we can also develop in the light of who they are. They're going to be examples for us today about what it looks like. Now, this is a barbershop talk. So it's not just about what I'm saying. It's about what everyone in the room is saying, because everybody's voice is important. But if your voice needs to be heard somewhere, I want you to take the information on the screen. Maybe you want to take the QR code, that's actually my real phone number, and reach out, and we'll connect. If you can't get it now, we'll get it after, okay? Now, coming to the stage, we're going to have a great panel. I want to introduce each of our panelists to go ahead and come out, and when they come and sit down, I'm going to introduce them individually. But I want to know one thing. Are you ready to move?
Yeah.
No, y'all sound like y'all still stuck in your chair. Are you ready to move?
Yes.
Coming to the stage now, we have Mr. Ryan Hardgraves, we have Mr. Brett Gray, we have Mr. Kerry Wall.
Woo!
There we go. Yeah. Now, I'm excited about this moment. Much of what I learned about being a young adult, by being a young man, I learned in conversations like this in the barbershop. And I learned it with great people like the people sitting to my right. Immediately to my right, I have Mr. Ryan Hardgraves. Many of you know him for asking the famous question, are you smart?
Yes.
He hails from Mississippi, and LaRon is a singer, an actor, and a content creator. The guy that started at 10 years old.
10.
We find out because you asked the question.
Yes.
He started off way before then.
Yeah.
Way before then. Way before then. Now, from 10 years old to asking questions on social media, now Rolling Stones has now named you one of the most influential creators.
Woo!
Immediately to his right, we have Mr. Brett Gray. He's an actor. Some of you recognize him. Many of you know the different platforms. Some of them we won't name right now for other reasons. But we know him as an actor in his role on Netflix. Brett has played many roles, and he started in school. That's amazing. I think that's big for us to hear that he started where he was. His humorous performances grabbed the attention of many people, including his teachers and his fellow students. But it all really capped off when his mother took him to a theater named New Freedom Theater in Philadelphia.
It was black and black.
Black and black. That's how I like it. And then to his right, we have one of our very own, one of the NAACP Shining Stars. We have Mr. Kerry Wall. Hey, give it up for Kerry. Kerry is a graduate of Purdue, and he's currently working on his master's, a master's degree. Come on, man.
Kerry.
He's working on his master's degree right now in applied behavior analysis. Kerry is one of the shining stars of the NAACP, and I can't wait to get in this conversation with you guys. So, my first question is, how do you identify who you truly are? We talked about business and all these other things. What is the thing that says this identifies me the best? If you could put it in 1 or 2 words, how would you do it?
I can put it in 3 letters.
Go ahead.
G-O-E.
I know that one. Mama.
So, for me personally, I grew up in church. I grew up Baptist. My Baptist folk out there.
Yeah.
You know
Hallelujah.
what I'm saying? But, God is everything to me. You know what I'm saying? So, before I go forth in any way, shape, or form, my master's program, I do it for grace. Just figure out, is this for me? And then if this is for me, how do I operate in this space, guys? So everything I do, I give all the glory.
Now, how did you get introduced to this idea of God?
So I grew up in the church, like I said. It's just been all around me ever since. But wasn't really until freshman year of being at Purdue. Really was going through like freshman year depression and everything like that. And I found the Holy Spirit for myself. Wow. And that's where I really started to captivate myself within the Word of God. And really, how does that captivate me and push me forward in my studies?
So if I heard you correctly, you just said that you had a mental health moment and your faith helped bring you through.
Woo! I kid you not.
Oh man, that's an amazing statement. So let me ask you, Britt. What's a simple way to say who is Britt? How do you identify yourself?
You know, I'm actually like a bit more of a mess than that. It changes for me all the time.
Yeah.
I feel like maybe the best way for me to describe it would be like, just open-minded about it because I try not to ascribe myself to one thing or to, hold too tightly to different things because you just never know where things are going to take you. And I don't want to limit myself in terms of like the possibilities of who I could be. But I also want to like ground myself in the things that I already know that I am. So it kind of like, it flusters for me. So I just say like, it's a journey. I feel like every day, every year, every week, every month, every decade, something new is like, okay, I learned this time, I don't like this, I'm not doing that anymore. This can, whatever, that can go. And then, you know what, I should try more things like this, or I should dive deeper into these aspects of myself that I have, sort of charted a path through.
Wow, I heard you say a couple of big things. I heard you say that you're grounded, but you're flexible.
Totally.
And I also heard you say that I want to identify what I like and what I don't like.
Totally.
And I also have short-term and long-term goals.
Yes.
Wow.
Yes. Because sometimes it's like, I think I have like, a flexible sort of like boundary or something. And then I learned this year, like, nope, not no more.
Nope.
If this thing is I'm not going to be able to tolerate this anymore in order for me to keep the peace in myself. So I'll just take it as it comes.
Man, I could sit there for a second, but I don't want to leave LaRon out. LaRon, how do you describe yourself to people? How do you say, this is who I am?
See, these are both very great answers because I feel like as people, we're complex individuals. Like, we can't really just put ourselves into one box of what we would describe ourselves. But if I were to add on, I would say my family is a great representation of who I am because I'm a reflection of my family and how my upbringing was raised and how I was how I was brought up. So I feel like that is a big defining factor of who I am.
Family.
Yes.
Family.
Yeah.
So community becomes important.
Very.
And the community that you know the best because it was the one you were born into.
Of course, yes.
Awesome question. Man, are those great responses?
Yeah.
Are those great responses?
Yeah.
Awesome. So let's ask this question because Brett, you said something. You used the word boundaries. As men, we're talking about identity, we're talking about manhood and leadership. How have you set specific boundaries in your life? And how have they pushed you towards greatness? Because in your own right, each of you have achieved greatness. How are these boundaries and these standards pushing you towards greatness?
To be honest, bro, I'm really just learning how to I've been sort of a people pleaser for most of my life. I enjoy the joy of others. I take pride in giving.
You're an actor.
But yeah, it genuinely makes me feel good. So I had to learn how to have more bandwidth in my life and just make sure that the things that I need taken care of are taken care of. The people around me are, I can't set the expectation on them to give as much as me because I genuinely enjoy to. But to make sure that I'm getting some type of reciprocity in the relationship, whether it's friendship, family,
Reciprocity. That's the word.
He said, "Are you smart?" Man?
Are you smart? I think you said yes.
Yeah. So yeah, I'm really just now getting to a point where I'm learning how to actually really mean my boundaries. It used to bother me to say no. It used to bother me to have somebody else have a negative sort of situation with me or just sort of outcome or not to sort of rise up to someone else's expectation of what I should be doing or how I should be doing it. So To me right now, I just like, have you ever heard of the book, The Subtle Art of Not Giving
Yes,
a Fuck?
yes.
Big period.
Right, and she talks about the bank,
Right.
you know, where it's like, okay, I have $100 to give every week, and going to this party might cost 20. So if I get to the end of the week and you need me to help you move out of your apartment,
I have no more to give.
I have $3 left, and that's 50.
Wow.
You know, so it's like literally like implementing grace into your plan. So like, hey, I already have decided I don't give a fuck about this.
Wow.
You know, and whatever the person's response is to that just kind of has to be what it is, and I will show up for them in other ways when I have the bandwidth too. So that's I'm going through that process right now.
Man, so growth is a continual process.
Oh yeah,
It's not a one-time
and it hurts
event.
too.
It hurts.
Sometimes it goes against what you are used to. Sometimes, especially with your family too, like, you know, you set a boundary with a family member. And it's like, I've known you since I was in the sandbox, and that boundary has never existed before. But guess what? Today it does, and you have to accept me for how I'm growing. You know, even though you've known versions of me that I no longer, you know, subscribe to.
Man, so Laurent, we just heard boundaries in family, and when we grow to these pinnacles of our lives, our relationships, they have to change.
Yes.
Especially when you work with the family that raised you.
Oh yeah.
Now, we've all watched our amazing, our amazing niece, who we've all adopted. Like, if you haven't adopted your real yet, something's wrong, right? Like we've adopted you into our family as well, but we watch you from a distance. How have things changed in your relationships as you grow into a businessman, into an influencer? How have those things changed for you?
Man, really and truly, I feel like it's just a version of me stepping more into myself as a leader, as opposed to being someone that's more willing to follow other people.
Right.
Because I say all the time, like, you know, as much as I have people around me that help me, I would much rather fail on my own terms, knowing that I did what I thought was right, as opposed to failing behind somebody else and doing what they thought was right and I thought it was wrong. So I feel like in this process, it has taught me how to be more of a leader and how to be more assertive in things that I want to do and my choices that I want to make, and not just with my career, but just in life in general. Like, it's really, it's up that for me a lot.
Man, so you saying that triggered a thought for me that I had as a kid, and it was this idea of being the man of the house. Is this what I'm hearing from you now, Laurent? An attempt of you being like the man of the family, being one of the men who lead your family?
I would say yes, but
Say that
I'm more so.
carefully.
Yeah, because my dad's right there. But to answer that, I would say I'm being more of a man of myself. I'm able to lead myself more. Like, I don't have to go to my parents and be like, hey, what should I do for this? What should I do for that? And like, of course I do go for advice when I truly feel like I need it, but at the same time, I want to be able to make those decisions within myself, and I feel like that has given me more confidence to be able to do those things.
Man, so Dad is in the audience.
Yes.
Hey, Dad. and so in the presentation, we talked about what it looks like to model behavior to grow into our full development, right? Give me somebody, Carrie, who you kind of modeled yourself after as you've grown in your development as a leader.
Unfortunately, she's no longer with us, but she was my former art teacher / music teacher. She really pushed me to, one, be a leader within myself, but also just to lead. I sing in a choir, I'm a singer. So she pushed me to lead in that regard as well. And so she just helped me to figure out who I was when I was going through high school, middle school as well, just trying to figure out not only how do I define my voice, but how can I use my voice to help those who are around me. And though she was helping me from a singing aspect, to me, internally, I was like, okay, well, if I can captivate folks while I'm singing, imagine what I can do while I'm speaking, or while I'm just out here trying to do just what I like to do, which, you know, now I do mental health and things like that. So going through what I went through, I use my story to help everybody else. So she just really helped me. Shout out to her, RP her, but she really helped me to define that for myself.
Wow, that's